it's not popular to be a Christian nowadays. You know what I mean? So like, has it given you any kind of challenges?
It's surprising. So maybe not as you would think.
Mayor Armin Mizani, for those of you who don't know you, share a bit about your journey to Keller and how your Catholic faith has shaped your family life here.
I come from a pretty unique background. My father's Persian, came to the United States from Iran in the late 70s when the revolution was happening in Tehran. My mom is Puerto Rican, but her parents are actually Cuban. And they left Cuba right before Castro took office and went to Puerto Rico. My parents, so my mom Puerto Rican, my dad Iranian, of all places, they met in Lawrence, Kansas, because they went to school at KU. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. After they met, they went to Puerto Rico, and that's where I was raised till about 9 years old. From there, we moved to Northern California, went there through high school, and then I went to undergrad at Purdue University, where ultimately I met my wife. Would-be wife. Freshman year, we started dating at Purdue, which is in Indiana. So I tell people I'm kind of like the military kid, but without the military. And because I've lived all over the place, and I lived in all parts of our great country. And one of the things that I've come to appreciate, partly because of my background and a different perspective, is how great this country is and has been for my family in opening doors that I think in other countries would otherwise be closed. And that's one of the reasons that really prompted me into public service. I remember vividly a trip that I took to Washington, D.C. when I was about 11 years old. My dad was giving us a tour of the Supreme Court and telling us what the Chief Justices do and what that building represented. And I could just tell by the sense of pride in his face of when he was just kind of explaining of him, not necessarily what he was saying, but just being able to be there. And at that point, I'm the oldest of five, but at that point it was me and my two other siblings, so there's three of us. And just the fact that he was there and able to take his family and talk about the history and what this country has provided. And to me, that was always a point where I knew then that I wanted to be an attorney, which is what I do in my private practice, but also want to get involved in public service. I also think what's so special and unique about this country is that, in my opinion, it is founded on our biblical teachings and it's founded on God. And to me, I think what's needed, frankly, at all levels of government, whether it be local, state, federal, are people that are willing to stick to their values and at the same time who are unapologetic about bringing the church into their daily lives and especially of how they govern in public office. I think we need more of that. I'm a firm believer that our laws are created through our teachings that we learn through the Bible and our moral values, and that is why, for example, we have laws that say you can't steal or laws that you can't kill, because it's all founded in that. And I think we need more people that are willing to stand up on that. I am someone who, as mayor, have been very proud about my Catholic faith. I attend Good Shepherd here in Colleyville. Mm-hmm. That is where my kids got baptized, and so for me, that is at my very core, that is important to me. Everything I've tried doing as mayor has been kind of led through that lens, and I try to do that. We're all not perfect, but I do think we need more leaders in public office who are willing to say that out loud, because oftentimes when you get elected into public office, you don't talk about those things because maybe you think there's a sense of separation between church and government. And in my opinion, it's the separation of government into church. Our church should always be, in my opinion, mixed and intertwined with our government, because without that, then we don't have a country, or we don't have a town hall with values that I think you and I would want to aspire to. And so that's kind of my background. That's why I got into politics or public service, and for me, it's always been rooted in my Christian faith, Catholic faith.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Go into your discernment process for entering into public service. Like, it sounded like it was just something you wanted to do. Did you have to wrestle with anything back and forth, or was this just like, I see a vision, I see how I can add value, I'm called to this? What was that like? Yeah.
To me, it's one of those things where, like I said, I knew at a young age that I wanted to get into helping people. And that's honestly why I went to law. I'm a trial attorney by trade. And the reason I like being a trial attorney is because I feel in many ways it's a way of helping the person without a voice. And in public service, I view it as the same as an extension of helping my community, wanting to do good. I'm not one of those people that believes that God, touched me on my shoulder and said, "Hey, Armin, go run for mayor." I do think, however, that God has a path visioned and created for us. And my prayer each and every night is for me to walk towards that path that He's created. I've never prayed, for example, to God and asked, "God, let me win this election." My prayer has always been, if it's in your will and if this is what you have for me, I pray that you guide me towards it so I can better serve through what it is that you have for me. Vision for me. That's always been my prayer when it comes to public office.
As far as the discernment process, what I gathered, it wasn't necessarily you were praying to God for outcome. You were praying to Him for guidance.
Yeah.
And then through that, it gave you clarity. Right?
Correct. I pray for guidance, and ultimately for me, I believe that He has a path and a vision for you as He has for me. And my prayer each and every night is for Him to guide me towards that, whatever that vision is. And if it is in public service to better help people and help my community, then I ask for strength, I ask for humility, I ask for wisdom. But I always pray for guidance and to me following whatever it is that He has charted out for me.
I love that. So what is the advice that you have for others who may be discerning public service? What do you have to say to them?
It's if you believe that is a calling, and then pray about it. Talk about it with family, and make sure that it is a calling that ultimately is right for you, but also for them, because this is a sacrifice in many ways. There's a lot of times where maybe I can't attend a sporting event, whether it be my son or my daughter. I can't attend maybe a family function. So there is some sort of level of sacrifice, and you need a team. I always tell people, when you step into a role like this, you have a conversation with your spouse, because it is going to be very important, because they're in this just as much as you are. And then ultimately, I'm a firm believer that as a family, we need to pray together about it. And ultimately, if it is a calling, if it is something that you think you could be of value, I think we need more good people at all levels, honestly, at all levels, local, state, federal, to step up. Because oftentimes I think people get into politics for all the right reasons, but for whatever reason, either they stay there too long, or their values change, and maybe they didn't have good intentions, and they just wanted to get into office just to hold a certain title. We need more good people to step up. And in my opinion, it's people of faith, because ultimately our laws are derived from what we learn through the Bible. And so for me, that is what my hope is, hopefully, is that it will inspire other people to step up. But my one advice is, have that conversation with the family, because it is as much of a sacrifice it is for you, it is for your family.
So number one, pray, discern, ask for guidance. And then number two, have fully open, transparent conversations, especially with your family.
Correct.
Because this is not just a one-person thing. You're bringing the whole family into this thing.
Yeah.
So,
You need, if you're married, you need your spouse on board, and if you've got kids, you need your kids on board, because there are things that you're going to miss. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, and if you're doing it because you want to serve your community, one of the cool things that I've been able to experience as mayor is that in many ways I've had the opportunity to experience a lot of the things through my kids' lens. So for example, in Keller, we're very big into our trails and our parks and our amenities. And so when you see improvements in those areas of our city, and then you take your kid to the baseball game or the football game, and you see, oh wow, these are the sports, this is the sports park that we renovated. It's a great feeling to see that change.
Yeah.
And at the local level, you can see that more so than any other level, in my opinion, because there's so much red tape at the state level and at the federal level. Whereas here, if you've got an issue, you've got a concern, you can reach out to your mayor, you can reach out to your city council person. If there's a pothole that needs to be fixed, chances are you reach out, it probably can get fixed the next day. That's what's so powerful, so cool about the local level, is that it is neighbors helping neighbors. And I think for me, that's always been a source of inspiration and motivation, because each and every day there's something new, and each and every day you can see that progress.
And you can see the impact. And it's not going to take years upon years to do it, because it's local.
Right.
How does your Catholic faith guide your decision-making process as a husband, as a mayor, as a leader?
I mean, it guides in every aspect of it, right? That's why we talked about earlier. It guides it when I make decisions at the dais. I think I view it through the lens of how does it help my neighbor? And, you know, as a husband and as a father, I want to raise my kids to be good, productive members of society. And in many ways, when you're placed in these positions where people trust you to make the right decisions, in many ways, you are, by your actions, you're demonstrating, you know, leadership's, in my opinion, a good leader is someone who leads by example, not just by the things that he says. That's something that God has taught us, right? And so for me, that's one of the things that I try to each and every day is, as mayor and as a leader of folks within the council, is how we live our lives, how we go out to the community, what we say to the community, but also what we do is important. And for my kids to be able to see that through their father serving in this particular position, that was frankly, given to me by voters who entrusted me with that responsibility. To me, it's important to always, in any, whether it be a development matter, whether it be an amenity matter, whatever policy decision it is at town hall, I think you got to be guided by what you've learned through the Bible and your values and what you believe to be right.
Has being a Catholic presented any challenges to you in this line of work? It's not popular to be a Christian nowadays, you know what I mean? So like, has it given you any kind of challenges?
It's surprising. So maybe not as you would think, but there are certain times where you do see it. For example, nowadays with social media, it's so easy for people to get on a keyboard and just type in what they want to say behind lens, but not things that they want to say to you in person, right? And sometimes when you are someone such as myself, who, as I said, I'm unapologetic about who I am and my values and my faith, and I've taken positions that maybe politically are unpopular, but I think they're right because of my belief in my Catholic faith. So, for example, we recognize the sanctity of life. It is something that politically is not always it is a very divisive issue,
right?
Even frankly amongst the church. Sometimes we have neighbors that maybe disagree on that issue. But I do believe in the sanctity of life, and I took a position in that, and I recognized the sanctity of life, that all life is important. And when we took that position, we had opposition to it. I've learned that in this job, you can never make everyone happy. I've always made the comment that I could put an ATM in the middle of the city that dispenses free money, and someone's going to be upset about it. I've also learned that if you stick to your principles and your values and you do what's right, even if people may disagree with you on that particular issue, they may come to appreciate or respect it because you've at least provided your reasoning and your rationale and where that's originating from. And so, for example, on that particular issue, I had no qualms about it because I believe that to be right. Nowadays, it's very easy, for example, for people to say, well, if you say this or you say that, then you've heard the term Christian nationalist. You've heard, right? In politics, things like that. I feel that there are some people that will weaponize your faith because they believe, like I said earlier, that there should be a separation between government and church. But I believe that separation is between government into church, not the other way around. Like I said, church is essential in government. You can't separate the church from our government. In God we trust. It's instilled in our capital. It's instilled in our currency, right? And so I don't think the intention was for church to be separate from government. I think the intention was for government to be less intrusive of the church. I think that's and so some people disagree with that. And so when you bring things like this into the mix, or when you talk about your faith, or when you start a council meeting with prayer like we do in the city of Keller, there are some people out there that do not like that. But at the end of the day, that probably has been the biggest challenge, but it hasn't bothered me, and it hasn't altered as far as how I approach the job and the role and the responsibility, and it hasn't altered my policy making, because ultimately, for me, it's rooted in doing what I think is right, doing what I think will help my community. If you're earnest in your values, you can live with whatever the sermon may be, whatever people may say about you, because if you believe in it, then I can lay down in bed each and every night, because, like I said, ultimately that is something I believe in. I can sleep well. I understand that it may not make everyone happy, but one of the things that I've learned, like I said earlier, as mayor, you will never make everyone happy. And if you try to make everyone happy, then some way along the road, you're hurting someone, because then you're always chasing being liked, as opposed to chasing what's right. And for me, if you try to do what's right each and every time, you may have people that will disagree along the way, but they will come to respect or at least appreciate where you're coming from. And I've learned in the 6 years that I've been mayor is that over time, people have appreciated that about me, and that I'm at least consistent in that way.
What is your best advice then to Catholics that may experience some opposition or fear or anxiety of living publicly as a Catholic?
I've told people at the end of the day, if you are someone that's called into public service because you want to do good and if you want to serve your community, you'll never make everyone happy in this role. You'll never find a politician who people have agreed with 100% of the time. Number one, you have to come to that realization. But maybe it's an oversimplistic way of looking at life, because to me, ultimately, we're all gonna at someday when we pass away, and if we lived a good life, we're gonna go to heaven. I'm a believer in that. And whenever that day comes for me, the question that I'll probably have for me, and maybe this is, like I said, oversimplistic way, is I'll probably have 3 questions. Was I a good husband? Was I a good father? And did I do good? I'm not really gonna care about what this person said about me, or whatever obstacle came along the way. That's part of our journey. But at the end of the day, we live one life. At least I believe that we live one life. And to me, those are the 3 questions. And if I can say that I was a good father, and that I was a good husband, and that I did well for my community and for people around me, then I'm okay with the rest.
Have there been any moments in your time as a mayor when you have seen and recognized God's hand at work in the decisions or direction of the city?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Really?
First of all, each and every day, but I will tell you one obstacle that we had as a city, but also as a state. I took office in December of 2020. And not too long ago, if you remember, in Texas, we had that big winter storm.
Yeah.
And that was a storm that obviously impacted Keller as much as it impacted other cities throughout the state. Here in the city of Keller, we had no electricity, like many cities, but we also had no water. And that was truly becoming an issue. As you can imagine, someone who was just a month or 2 months into the job as mayor, there was a lot of prayer, going on. And I will tell you, at least from my perspective, I considered it a prayer answered, in the sense that here in we had a very bad situation in the Keller where our pipes were frozen, and so we were unable to get that water to people. And we live in a community where we do have an aging population of senior citizens that need our help and need our attention. But when roads are iced and everything's closed, and the supermarkets, if you remember, were always were empty, or some of them were closed, how do you answer to them? How do you provide for them? It was a lot of prayer, and we had several organizations and individuals and churches that stepped up. We had a church here in Keller. I remember Milestone Church. Immediately, the minute we called them, they said, how can we help?
Wow.
We had another church, Keystone, that same thing. They said, how can we help? We had an individual who in Keller happens to own a water bottling company, and he actually bottles his own water that actually is groundwater here from the city of Keller, spring water. And so I called him, and I asked him, is there any way that you can help at least provide water for folks in our community? He brought a 6,000-gallon tanker, drove it from his factory, bottling plant, and put out here at the front of Keller Town Hall at the steps. And we had volunteers and church leaders, Keystone and Milestone, people from the church community came in and stepped up and actually helped in distributing that water.
Wow.
we had cars lined up around Town Hall, around 1709, lined up to get water, and it wasn't all Keller residents. We had a lot of people from Fort Worth and Southlake and Colleyville actually come because we were one of the few communities who had that resource.
Well, close us out with a final piece of advice. It seems more rare nowadays to see strong leaders live their Catholic faith publicly. So what advice can you share to live more boldly their Catholic faith?
We need more good people to step up. I will always repeat that whenever I get a chance and whenever there's a platform to be able to say that. We need more people in faith, in Catholic faith in particular, to step up and serve. And when you do, be unapologetic about that. Be unapologetic about who you are and what guides you and the principles and values that you have. Because I think in public service and politics at all levels, we need more good people to step up. And as I said earlier, have that conversation with your family. It is a sacrifice to not be able to attend a family function and things like that. And so you need everybody on board. So you've got a spouse, if you have children, have that conversation. But if you have that support system, then my advice is, and my encouragement would be, step up and lead, because we need more people that are going to be able to be guided by God and live out that life, a purposeful life. Like I said, at least for me, were you a good husband, father, did you do good? And know that in politics, if you can answer that at the end of the day, then that probably means that you did good for your community, as long as it was guided through those lenses. So that's my advice is, if you feel like there's a calling, step up and serve. Don't feel that things need to be aligned perfectly for you to run for office. Quick backstory, when I first got on city council, all I wanted to do was just serve on a board and commission and volunteer my time. I interviewed twice. I got rejected, I got denied twice. Third time came around and I looked to my wife and I said, should I apply for a third time and see if I can just serve on the Parks and Rec board? Or should I run for city council because at the time we had a vacancy? I didn't know many people in Keller at that time, other than my wife. And depending on that day and how I behaved, I could either bank on 1 or 2 votes in our household, and that was kind of the floor. And so for me, there was never going to be a perfect time, but I felt called to run because at the end of the day, I wanted to do good. And so what I tell people is, even if you feel that it may not be the perfect time, if you feel that calling, if you feel that wanting to serve, as long as you have your family and as long as you feel you're compelled to do so for all the right reasons, then do it. And and trust that God has a plan for you. And even though I didn't know many people in Keller, we knocked on a lot of doors. Through that process, we got to meet a lot of people. They got to meet me. And ultimately, we got elected. And it's kind of funny because some of the folks that I ran against, I remember back in 2014, I happened to serve with now in city council and their colleagues. But if I waited for the right time, it may have never gotten there. Trust in God that He will guide you along the way. But I do think it is on us to listen and ultimately do what we're compelled or what we think we're being guided to do.
I think that's really great advice, and I think just by sharing your story, I think it's going to inspire a lot of other Catholics to live more boldly and pursue the calling that God has in their heart. So thank you so much for this, Mayor Mizani.
Thanks for having me.
And if you would share with our audience, how do they connect with you, learn about you, and support your causes?
I've got a website that you can learn more about me. It's called arminfortexas.com. I'm also on social media, which is just at Armin Mizani TX. And you can follow me there. I love to get ideas from constituents. And even if you don't live in Keller, I'd love to hear from you, because ultimately I do think the policies that we pass here at the local level have a broader impact on other communities. And so if you live in Fort Worth or Colleyville, anywhere in North Texas, reach out. I'd love to help. And if, as we said here earlier, if you feel compelled to run, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to meet with you and help offer any advice I can along the way.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to have all your contact information in the post notes as well.
Perfect.
So this has been really awesome. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.